So as you all know by now, Kamala Harris dropped out of the presidential race. We briefly discussed it on Kyle and Corin, but I wanted to dive into it a little more here. So the question is why? Why did she drop out? How did she get to this point? Well, obviously she imploded in the polls. She had next to no support. You have Andrew Yang, who's an outsider candidate who's getting no media coverage. He's polling way higher than Kamala Harris. So she dropped out. What led to the downfall? Well, the first thing is obvious. The first thing is Tulsi Gabbard exposing her on the debate stage. I mean, she really did a number on her. If you go back and watch that, Tulsi Gabbard just lands shot after shot after shot, and Kamala has no good response. You want to know why? Because Tulsi was focusing on the policies. Tulsi was focusing on her record. And she was saying, you have a terrible record as a prosecutor, and here are the things that you did. And Kamala's reaction was effectively, Assad, you like Assad. And it didn't land. And then she embarrassingly went on mainstream media afterwards and said, not to sound, conceited here, but I'm a top-tier candidate. Oh, God. I do believe she said that immediately after she got her ass handed to her on a silver platter by Tulsi. Hilarious. So Tulsi exposed her. I think that led to people looking at her like, whoa. Certainly that decreased her support among the people because maybe a lot of these people didn't know about her record as prosecutor, and now they did. But then also Tulsi destroying her and her not having good responses led to the media kind of recognizing that, oh, she's really not strong here. She's not mounting a good counter to what Tulsi's saying. So it even led the media to kind of back off her a little bit in their relentless pushing of her, which to that point they were doing that. Now, the other reason why she ended up imploding is, and I'm not sure how many of you guys remember this, but if you go back, she used to try to copy Bernie. She bragged about being the first one to sign on to his Medicare for All legislation. In the first debate or two, she was decidedly taking the left flank position on a variety of issues. She was doing the old Elizabeth Warren move of like, oh, in the debates, whenever Medicare for All comes up, side with Bernie and argue on his team. And then that'll make people like you. And it does. It does. It makes people like you. And so in the case of Kamala, she did it like the first two debates or so. That's what she did. She was like trying to rep that lefty lane. And then, listen, one can speculate as to why she abandoned that, but she certainly abandoned that. Is it because she herself thought, okay, now let me go in a more right-wing direction, a more centrist corporatist direction? Or what I think is more likely is her staff. Her staff convinced her, okay, now you got some decent numbers. You're peaking after that first debate. Well, now you're a serious candidate, and what do serious candidates do? Tone it down. No more lefty revolution stuff. No, tone it down. Safe. Now we play it safe. And when you play it safe, you don't talk about the big, bold policy ideas. You don't argue from a left-wing perspective. And immediately, when she decided to play it safe and be more corporatist, started plummeting. That definitely led to her downfall as well. And that's an underreported part of the media will never tell you this side of the story because in their mind, it's the exact opposite. They want to never give lefties credit, and they want to always give the status quo defenders credit. Even though what happened with Kamala flies directly in that narrative, they would never acknowledge that. So when she made this transition, see, this is the fascinating part to me. She made this transition from trying to sound like Bernie to just sounding like a standard corporate nothing politician like Hillary. And then she started tanking in the polls. And she recognized that. And so they kind of went into panic mode. Oh boy, what do we do to get back to where we were and to try to get back and become number one? And they made a decision, a clear decision. And the decision was, okay. Well, now we got to thread this needle. How do we look like lefty while also being serious, which really is corporate? How do we thread that needle where we maintain our serious credibility, but also can appear leftier than now as well? And what answer did they come up with? Go full social justice warrior. And that's why in, the latter debates, it was insanely cringeworthy. She would refer, whenever talking about, what would you do as president? She talks about the idea of a president in the abstract and says, instead of like what they should do, she says like what she should do. This weird decision that she made to always refer to the president as using female pronouns in a weird attempt to like make people go, oh, I like that she said that. It was just weird. She said it multiple times in awkward ways, and everybody was like, why is she doing that? Like, I don't understand what's she doing. That's just weird. Like, in areas where it doesn't fit, she's like, herself, she, and it's like, why are you doing this? And there were many examples of going full social justice warrior, most famously trying to repeatedly press Elizabeth Warren to support banning Donald Trump from Twitter. Like, of all the issues she picked, like, she could have picked from to outflank everybody on the left, the one she decided to go with was deplatform the president because he says bad things. And you could tell Elizabeth Warren was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And Elizabeth Warren was basically like, no, I'm not going to support banning him, but what people should do is look at who's accepting money from social media companies. And that's her way of saying, like, she's accusing me of being weak on these companies. She's corrupt and bought by them. So that's the point that she was making subtly. She could have been more clear about it, but it was issue after issue after issue. It was full of goofy social justice warrior, and it doesn't land. That doesn't land. Doesn't land. You can literally be as left as you want, and it's a good strategy to get elected on economic issues. As soon as you step into, like, authoritarian leftism stuff, where you get obsessed with, like, race or gender, we see the results, man. People think, oh, I'm not for that. And that's what happened with Kamala. They went into panic mode. They had the identity crisis. What should we do? How do we maintain lefty credibility while also maintaining our serious candidate status? Go left on the social issues as hard as you possibly can, but stay pro-status quo on the economic issues, and voila, she totally imploded. Now, the other point, and Cenk Uygur made this point as well on his show, is the donor class pulled their support. At a certain point, they realized, oh, she's not going to work. And so, in a similar way to Scott Walker in 2016, when Scott Walker wasn't popping off in the polls, and he was running for president in 2016, they gave him that phone call and were like, all right, dude, we need you to wrap it up. We're going to coalesce around somebody. And remember, we've gone through this 1,000 times, but first it was like Jeb Bush, right? Jeb Bush. And then he imploded. Then the establishment was like Marco Rubio, right? Rubio. Then he imploded. Then they were like, Kasich? Then he imploded. And then they were like, all right, fine, we'll take Cruz. And then he imploded. And then Trump was the last one standing. I think you're going to see a similar dynamic on the Democratic side. You absolutely are, because it's already happening. Kamala had her moment in the sun, then she imploded, and she got the call from the donors. They're like, hey, listen, we need you to wrap it up, skis, and we're going to have to coalesce behind somebody. And they'll do that. They'll still keep trying to find who's the strongest link. They're still hanging on for dear hope that Klobuchar has a shot. They're still hanging on for Mayor Pete. They like the idea of Biden, even though they're also unsure that he can hang on. They think he's weak, which is why they have the insurance policies of Mayor Pete and Klobuchar. Now Bloomberg jumping in the race. They would love a Bloomberg presidency. So they're going to do... Watch, you'll see, man. This is what they're going to do. And then the response from the Kamala campaign is really telling. And actually, to be fair, it's not just the Kamala campaign. It's also the media. I've now seen multiple articles where their reaction is... oh, the reason she had to drop out and she ended up failing is because racism and sexism. I'm at a loss for words. You really think that's why she lost? Racism and sexism. You think that's why she lost? It's got nothing to do with race. It's got nothing to do with gender. It has to do with the fact that she's an unappealing candidate who's running a totally confused campaign. She is what happens when you try to find what you believe while on the campaign trail. She's not going into it believing anything. She's like, I don't know, I'll say whatever you want. Just make me president. This is what happens. So it's the old playbook, man. They went right back to, well, it's got to be the racism and the sexism. And Kamala said, to be fair to Kamala, she's not playing that card. Some people in her campaign are, but the media, I've seen op-eds where they say, oh, that's obviously what it is. She said, oh, I'm not raising the money that I need to raise, and since we aren't funded by billionaires, what am I going to do? I got to drop out. That's basically what she said, which is hilarious because Kamala is actually one of the top recipients of billionaire money. She has more billionaire donors than the majority of the other people on the debate stage. But on her way out, she's like, it's a hint that it's like, I'm going to still try to pretend to be populist to some extent now. She may have recognized that the whole like centrist experiment imploded. She may have realized that the whole SJW, perspective imploded, that that's not how you win elections. And now on the way out the door, it's like a hat tip to, okay, I guess the populism was the way to go. And so she's like, me? It's because I'm too grassroots, bro. That's why I got to drop out. And I don't take billionaire support. And some of these other people in the race, you know what I'm saying, they take it. So what am I going to do? Except you did take it. Quite a bit of it. So anyway, that's what happened with Kamala Harris. Good riddance. See, I've never been more happy to be wrong about a prediction in my life. Because if you guys remember, I thought she was going to hang around and be there where it turned Bernie at the end. I was wrong. I was dead wrong. I'm happy I was wrong, but I was wrong. And it's because at the time, she was doing the fake lefty thing. And I thought, well, she's going to keep doing this, obviously. And so it's going to keep working. That's what I thought. And I was wrong because she did. And here's the main point, guys. I overestimated her political acumen. I thought they would have obviously recognized being a fake lefty was working for them, so they would keep pretending to be leftist. But they didn't. I think her idiot advisors got to her, and she was more than willing to go along with them. And okay, yeah, no, sure. Now that we're serious, let's be more centrist. So I couldn't have foreseen that. I couldn't have predicted that. So that I was wrong about that. But I will say there's something I was right about, though, which I'm very happy about, which is when the media kept trying to say she was the front runner, I was like, no, that's not based on anything. It's not based on anything. There's no empirical data to back up that she's a front runner. And I was constantly saying that even though I thought she was going to be one of the last ones standing, the media was overhyping her and saying she's better than she actually is, and her standing was already like a front runner and a leader when that wasn't true. I was saying that wasn't true all along. In particular, I called out Chris Cillizza for doing his power rankings, and I swear to God, his number one on the list was Kamala, his number two was Beto. Both of them are now out of the race. He had Bernie Sanders at number 7. Number 7. He has got Cory Booker ahead of Bernie Sanders. And what did I say? That's totally made up. It's not true. It's what he wants to be true. It's not what actually is. And that's that old establishment trick of like, I'm going to pretend like I'm calling balls and strikes, but really I'm going to try to mold public opinion into believing the thing that I want to be true. Good riddance, Kamala, and thank you, Tulsi, is how I'll end this segment.